The room fell silent, as if the air itself had been sucked out. Every eye in the chamber locked on the podium, where Jasmine Crockett stood, calm, measured, and unshakable. Across from her, Mike Johnson's confident smirk faltered ever so slightly, a twitch of unease he tried desperately to mask. The audience reporters, staffers, and millions watching on livestream leaned forward. Sensing the storm about to erupt, "You've claimed time and again that you support working families," Jasmine began. Her voice steady but piercing, "Yet your voting record shows something entirely different. Why do you continue to fight policies that leave so many behind?" Gasps rippled through the gallery. Johnson opened his mouth, hesitated, then closed it again. He wasn't expecting her next move. Crockett's eyes narrowed ever so subtly. "And tell us, Mr. Johnson," she continued, "how do you reconcile your words with the reality your constituents are facing every single day?" The question hung like a thundercloud, heavy with implication. Cameras zoomed in on his tightening jaw, the sweat forming at his temple, the subtle shift in posture that betrayed his confidence. Social media exploded in real time, hashtags flashing, live comments pouring in. Everyone knew this was no ordinary debate. Everyone knew that what happened next could change everything. The chamber's hum of whispers grew louder, tension rippling through every corner. This wasn't just another political debate. This was a moment that would define public trust, national integrity, and the very values Americans claim to hold dear. For millions watching from living rooms, cafes, and office desks, it felt like witnessing history unfold. The stakes were nothing short of monumental. Jasmine Crockett stood unwavering, her posture deliberate, every gesture controlled. Her calm exuded a quiet authority, a reminder that preparation, principle, and courage were on her side. She had spent years listening to the struggles of communities ignored, advocating tirelessly for fairness and accountability. Every question she asked, every word she spoke, carried the weight of real lives, real consequences. Across the podium, Mike Johnson's confident demeanor seemed almost theatrical, his overconfidence a brittle mask waiting to crack. His past claims of reform and compassion clashed against a record of decisions that left many citizens questioning whose side he was really on. He gestured, attempted a light-hearted jab, but the room sensed the fragility beneath the bravado. Eyes darted from panel to panel. Hands gripped notes tighter. The press leaned in, cameras swiveling to catch the smallest falter. Social media feeds began to churn with speculation. Hashtags flickering across screens. Hashtag Crockett Challenge. Hashtag History in the Making. Every whisper and glance amplified the sense that this wasn't just a political contest. It was a test of integrity and accountability itself. And as the camera slowly zoomed on Jasmine's composed expression, the audience held its breath. What she would ask next and how Johnson would respond had the potential to shift the narrative for years to come. One question could redefine the conversation. One moment could leave the nation stunned. The room, the country, the world waited for the inevitable strike. Mike Johnson's rise in politics had always been marked by confidence. Some called it charisma. Others called it arrogance. From his early days as a young congressman, he had mastered the art of the soundbite. The clever retort and the well-timed smile. Crowds would cheer his speeches, pundits would praise his strong leadership, and headlines celebrated him as a rising star destined for national prominence. Yet beneath the polished exterior, cracks had long been forming. Invisible to the casual observer, but glaringly obvious to those who followed the details. Throughout his career, Johnson had built a reputation for deflecting difficult questions. When confronted with policy failures, he would pivot, sidestep, or, at times, rewrite the narrative entirely. Constituents who expected accountability were often met with rehearsed talking points and carefully crafted rhetoric. Campaign promises to support working families, to champion healthcare access, to fight for justice had a pattern of fading into compromise or inaction once power solidified. In town halls and interviews, Johnson's confidence often bordered on hubris, a relentless belief that optics mattered more than substance. His critics pointed two key moments where arrogance had overridden judgment. A controversial vote on education reform left teachers and parents feeling abandoned. An aggressive stance on taxation alienated moderate supporters. And on social media, while he projected strength, his carefully curated image sometimes betrayed tension. A misstep here, a contradictory statement there, all feeding the undercurrent that all was not as flawless as it seemed. Yet for Johnson, every challenge seemed smaller than himself. He thrived on theatricality, the booming applause, the well-timed pauses, the sense that he was untouchable. This overconfidence became his signature, a double-edged sword that had carried him far, but also made him vulnerable. Observers often whispered that hubris was his greatest ally and potential downfall. As the cameras focused on him now, a subtle shift was visible, a flicker of unease in his eyes, a micro-tremor in a hand that had always seemed steady. He had faced tough questions before, but never with the precision and moral weight that Jasmine Crockett brought to the table. His past tactics, his rehearsed defenses, his veneer of invincibility all were about to be tested in a way he could not anticipate. Even the most confident politician, even the one who had mastered every debate stage and controlled every narrative, can falter when confronted with truth. And in this chamber, under the watchful eyes of a nation, that moment was drawing near, one that would expose cracks in the armor, and perhaps redefine everything the public thought they knew about Mike Johnson. Jasmine Crockett's journey was forged in resilience. Long before she ever stepped onto the national stage, born to immigrant parents who had come to America seeking opportunity, she learned early the value of perseverance, dignity, and justice. Her childhood was a mix of cultural pride and quiet struggle, watching her parents navigate systemic barriers, while instilling in her a sense of responsibility to lift others as she climbed. Every lesson, every hardship, became a cornerstone of her character. From the beginning, Ms. Crockett showed an innate sense of purpose. In high school, she organized community programs for underprivileged youth, tutoring children whose voices were too often ignored. In college, she balanced academics with advocacy, standing up for marginalized students and pushing for policy changes that promoted equity. Law school only sharpened her commitment. She didn't pursue prestige for herself, but to fight for the voiceless and challenge institutions that perpetuated inequality. Her early career in public service reflected that same unwavering principle. Whether defending tenants against corporate overreach, championing civil rights, or holding elected officials accountable, Crockett built a reputation for integrity and courage under pressure. She earned respect not through theatrics or grandstanding, but through preparation, empathy, and an unshakable dedication to the truth. Colleagues and constituents alike admired her ability to listen first, analyze deeply, and act decisively. She understood that leadership was not about ego, it was about responsibility. And she carried that ethos into every meeting, every debate. Every challenge, cinematic moments from her past, shaped the public perception that now preceded her. A flashback to a packed community hall where her words moved a room to tears. A quiet evening reviewing legislation by candlelight. Mentorship sessions with young activists eager to follow her example all painted a portrait of a leader, forged in both struggle and steadfast principle. Her calm on the debate floor wasn't a performance. It was the product of years spent preparing to meet moments like this. Moments that demanded both intellect and moral clarity. Every experience, every victory, every setback, every quiet act of service had been training for this stage. The lessons she had absorbed from hardship and perseverance, the courage instilled by family and community, and the moral clarity developed over a lifetime of advocacy converged here. All of her experience would lead to this one defining moment. A question poised to cut through pretense and expose truth in a way the nation would not soon forget. The debate floor crackled with tension, the kind that made every whisper in the chamber feel amplified. Mike Johnson leaned forward, eyes flashing, ready to dominate with the same rehearsed confidence that had carried him through countless televised confrontations. He launched the first salvo dismissive jab at Crockett's record, delivered with a half-smile meant to undermine her credibility. The audience shifted uncomfortably. sensing the weight behind every word. Crockett's response was measured, calm, and deliberate. She didn't mirror his aggression. She let it roll off her, using his attack as a backdrop to illuminate her own record of integrity. Her voice carried clarity and conviction, each syllable weighted with evidence and principle. The contrast could not have been sharper, his smirk faltering, her calm intensity unwavering. Every rhetorical flourish from Johnson began to crack under scrutiny. Each claim met with a poised refutation camera. Close-ups captured subtle fissures in Johnson's composure. A tight jaw, a hand that twitched, an eye darting toward his notes. Staffers exchanged quick, worried glances, and murmurs rippled through the audience. Social media, streaming the debate live, lit up with real-time commentary. Fans of Crockett typed fervent praise. Critics of Johnson expressed shock at the cracks, showing in his confident facade. The tension escalated further as Johnson resorted to interruptions and raised tones. A desperate attempt to regain dominance. But Crockett remained unflinching. Her answers precise, her pauses deliberate, and her presence commanding attention. The chamber seemed to hold its breath as the battle of words intensified. The contrast between arrogance and composure growing more stark with every exchange. Spectators could feel the shift, the momentum slowly tilting in Crockett's favor. She controlled the narrative without raising her voice, letting Johnson's faltering confidence speak louder than any argument. Whispers filled the room, the press scribbled notes furiously, and cameras captured every micro-expression of disbelief. And then, with a subtle but unmistakable intensity in her eyes, Crockett leaned forward slightly. Her next move, hanging in the air like a charged storm, the audience sensed it even before she spoke. But what she asked next left him visibly rattled. A question that would pierce the armor of arrogance and set the stage for a confrontation no one would forget. Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, her voice steady, deliberate, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. The chamber had grown silent, the collective breath of the audience held in anticipation. Every camera lens, every live-streamed feed, every note scribbled by reporters now focused on this pivotal moment. Johnson shifted in his seat, adjusting his tie, as if to armor himself against what was coming. But nothing could prepare him for the precision of Crockett's strike. "Mr. Johnson," she began. Her tone, calm yet unyielding, "You have repeatedly stated that you support working families, that you champion education, that you fight for healthcare access. Yet your record tells a different story. You voted against expanding child care support, opposed funding for public schools in underprivileged districts, blocked measures that would lower prescription costs for seniors. How do you reconcile your words with the impact of your actions?" The question landed like a thunderclap. Johnson opened his mouth, hesitated, and then faltered. His eyes darted to his notes, to his aides, anywhere but the gaze of Crockett. The audience leaned in, sensing the rare vulnerability of a politician who had always relied on confidence and theatrics. Crockett let the silence stretch, the tension building with every heartbeat. "You've spoken so eloquently about the struggles of families," she continued. "Yet when given the opportunity to act decisively time and again, you have chosen policy over people. Explain why. When action mattered most, you stepped aside." Every word was deliberate, a hammer striking against the brittle veneer of arrogance. Johnson shifted uneasily, the smirk gone, replaced by the subtle tightening of a jaw that betrayed panic. Whispers ran through the chamber, staff exchanging glances, cameras zooming in on micro-expressions, a twitch of the eye, a flicker of doubt, the slight tremor of a hand that had always seemed unshakable. The social media feeds exploded, hashtags trending instantly. Hashtag Crockett wins. Hashtag unbelievable moment. Hashtag truth exposed. Clips of her calm, piercing stare and Johnson's visible discomfort spread like wildfire. Commentary poured in, from analysts to casual viewers, all marveling at the precision and weight of her delivery. She dismantled him in under a minute, one tweet read. Another declared, "This is how accountability looks on a national stage." Crockett didn't rush. She paused, allowing the magnitude of her question to sink in. Every eye in the room, every screen across the nation, was fixed on Johnson as he searched desperately for a response. The clock seemed to stretch, the silence a tangible force pressing against the chamber walls. He opened his mouth, stumbled over words, tried to pivot, but every tactic she had anticipated. His defenses, once so polished, now seemed amateurish, brittle. Collapsing under the moral weight she carried, she leaned slightly closer, her voice softening just enough to command attention without aggression. You've built your career on optics, on confident statements, on the performance of leadership. But leadership is more than appearances. Leadership is action. It is accountability. It is integrity. So again, I ask, how do you stand by your claims when your record tells a completely different story? The chamber was frozen. Staffers held their breath. Cameras lingered on Johnson's pale expression, his eyes darting, hands clenching. Voice caught somewhere between defensiveness and disbelief. Crockett's composure was flawless, each word precise, each pause a deliberate strike. She had orchestrated the moment with years of preparation, each flashback of public service, each late night of analysis culminating here. The reaction was immediate and electric. The press erupted, commentators stammered, live feeds exploded with real-time shock and awe. Memes and sound bites circulated faster than anyone could have predicted. Social media celebrated the clarity, the courage, the precision with which she exposed the contradictions. Every tweet, every clip, every comment reinforced the narrative. Composure and principle had dismantled arrogance and pretense. And then, for the first time in years, the confident politician faltered completely. The question hung in the air, and no one had an answer. The moment Crockett's words landed, the world outside the chamber erupted. Social media feeds exploded, a digital tidal wave of astonishment, validation, and awe. Hashtags like hashtag Crockett wins, hashtag truth exposed, and hashtag mic drop moment dominated every platform, trending within minutes. Memes portraying the stunned expression on Johnson's face circulated endlessly, shared and reshared by millions who couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Short clips of her calm, incisive questioning went viral, each replay reinforcing the hero versus villain narrative that had gripped viewers in real time. News outlets scrambled to cover the story. Headlines blared across screens. Crockett shocks nation with one unstoppable question. Johnson stumbles under scrutiny. Public reacts. History in the making. Courage meets arrogance. Pundits who had once predicted Johnson's dominance now conceded the unexpected. A new standard of accountability had been set. Political commentators debated endlessly, replaying the exchange frame by frame, analyzing the subtle shifts in body language, and dissecting the moral clarity of Crockett's delivery. Celebrities, thought leaders, and activists added fuel to the fire, posting reactions that ranged from praise to outright astonishment. Tweets flooded in, finally, someone with courage and integrity. This is how leadership should look. Crockett just set a precedent for the rest of Congress. Even casual viewers, those who had tuned in for curiosity, joined the chorus, sharing clips with friends and family, sparking debates in homes, offices, and online forums alike. The conversation had transcended partisan lines. It was no longer a political spectacle. It had become a cultural moment in the halls of power. The ripple effect was immediate. Staffers whispered in corridors, lawmakers recalibrated talking points, and strategists scrambled to respond to a narrative they hadn't anticipated. Johnson's aides tried to contain the damage, issuing statements and scheduling interviews, but the momentum had shifted irrevocably. Every public appearance, every press briefing, every social media post now carried the weight of that defining exchange. Even ordinary citizens felt the impact. Communities who had long doubted whether political figures could act with genuine accountability felt seen, validated, and inspired. Conversations about leadership, courage, and integrity surged across dinner tables and town halls. Parents, students, and activists alike shared clips and insights. Turning a televised debate into a nationwide lesson in principle and truth, screens flickered across newsrooms. Phones buzzed incessantly, and in every corner of the country, people replayed that instant when arrogance faltered and calm authority prevailed. The chamber's silence had given way to a cacophony of reaction, and yet the weight of the moment lingered. The nation was left asking, how could one question change everything? In the aftermath of the debate, the lessons extended far beyond politics. Jasmine Crockett had not only confronted arrogance, but transformed the moment into a testament to dignity, accountability, and courage. Her calm precision had reminded the nation that true leadership was rooted not in bluster or theatrics, but in steadfast principle and unwavering integrity. She had taken a personal challenge and elevated it into a universal lesson, one that resonated across communities and inspired viewers to hold both themselves and their leaders accountable. The contrast between hero and villain had never been clearer. Mike Johnson, exposed in the light of truth, revealed the human frailty behind confidence and bravado. He was not evil, merely flawed. A figure whose overconfidence and avoidance of accountability had become his undoing. Crockett, by contrast, embodied composure and moral clarity. She showed that restraint and ethical consistency could dismantle arrogance more effectively than any shouting match or personal attack. Across the country, people reflected on the broader implications. The narrative was no longer simply about a debate. It was about what courage under pressure could achieve. Young activists, immigrant communities, and everyday citizens recognized themselves in Crockett's determination. Her victory, subtle yet powerful, offered validation that perseverance, preparation, and principle matter, that speaking truth with calm authority can shake entrenched systems, and that one person can ignite change simply by asking the right question. This moment lingered in memory, because it was more than politics. It was moral clarity in action. It reminded viewers that public service is a sacred responsibility, that integrity matters more than appearances, and that even the most imposing figure can falter when confronted with truth. Crockett had turned confrontation into inspiration, turning a politically charged exchange into a story of human values that transcended partisanship. And so, as the cameras panned across the chamber one last time, and social media feeds slowed to a reflective hum, the lesson was undeniable. In the end, integrity triumphed over arrogance. Jasmine Crockett's decisive question had changed the course of the debate, but its impact stretched far beyond that chamber. This was a moment that defined courage under pressure, integrity in leadership, and the power of truth to dismantle arrogance. Every viewer who watched witnessed more than a political exchange. They saw a reminder of what principled action can achieve, and how one voice, calm and steadfast, can hold even the most confident figure accountable. As the screen fades across her composed expression, the clarity of her message lingers. Her victory was not just a personal triumph. It was a beacon for anyone who believes that justice, dignity, and accountability should guide public life. The contrast between her poise and the villain's faltering confidence leaves a lasting impression. Integrity is not just admired, it's contagious. Now, the story becomes part of a larger movement. Every share, every discussion, every reaction reinforces the lesson that speaking truth, standing firm, and holding power to account matters more than fleeting optics or empty rhetoric. If you believe in courage, truth, and accountability, join the movements, subscribe, and share this story. Let Jasmine Crockett's example inspire action, ignite conversation, and remind the world that integrity always has the final word. The moment may have ended in the chamber, but its ripple effects are only beginning.